Okay, well good morning everybody and a big warm welcome to Southwark Council. I'm Stephen Parkinson and I'm from Web Labs, who are the providers of the software that you're about to see that Southwark Council have been using to deploy My Southwark. I'd like to first of all thank Southwark Council for hosting the event today, particularly Dave and Sabal, who you'll be hearing from very shortly. We owe them a big thank you for hosting the event and providing all the facilities you see today. I'd also like to introduce and say thank you and a very big warm welcome to everybody. Thank you very much for travelling to come here today. I'm sure you'll enjoy the event. There's a lot to learn and find out about what Southwark has been doing, and they're very keen to share the best practice that everybody can also perhaps take with them as well. I'm not aware of any fire alarm, Dave, that's due, so if there's a fire alarm, we'll need to get out of the building. There are toilets just at the entrance as you walk in. They're on the right hand side next to reception. And please can I ask everybody to turn their mobile phones on silent so that there are no interruptions during the course of the presentations. And at this point I'd like to introduce Dave. Dave, I think you're going to be taking the My Southwark and showing us through My Southwark and how it works. Just one quick point for Dave. Please could we leave questions to the end? There's a question and answer session, and in fact that's probably most of the presentation. But I think some of the questions that, as Dave goes through the presentation might be answered. So if you could leave the questions to the end, and certainly Dave will answer them. And if there's from a technical point of view, Web Labs can answer them. So round of applause, Dave. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thanks to my camera's assistants. Good morning everyone, welcome to Southwark. I'm glad you could join us here today. We're really happy to be able to host this event and to reinforce our relationship with Web Labs, who we've been working with for over 10 years now. So we're still talking to each other, so that's got to be a good sign for a relationship between a council and a supplier. I work for the IT and Digital Services Department here in Southwark, and I'm the Online Services Change and Innovation Manager, which in short means I look after most of the online customer-facing parts of our web estate and their ongoing development. So today I'm going to be talking about, big surprise, My Southwark. An overview of what it is, what functionality is there for our users to use, who uses it. So, okay, so we've put a lot of effort into building this over the years, but does anyone actually bother using it? There's lots of things we sometimes do and the take-up isn't quite there, we don't quite achieve our objectives. So we'll talk a bit about how we've hopefully achieved some of those objectives, what some of the barriers have been, what we need to do to make things better in the future. A big part of it is, think about our journey. Again, it's 5 years in the building, My Southwark at the moment. We started very small, it's been very much an iterative process. I think if we tried to build as a sort of waterfall type project what we've got now, we may never have actually got here. There's so much there, and it's something that we've worked with colleagues across the council to build on progressively, to get feedback from our users, to stop doing things that aren't working very well, to keep up to pace with modern technology, redesigns, and bring on new services that customers want and that our technology can actually support. So, although I haven't got a particular part of the presentation that goes on about the journey, I tried to just bring bits in there about where things have changed over the years. And Steve said at the end, hopefully it's going to become quite an interactive session where we can have questions and answers that are relevant to the questions you want to answer, problems you've had that we may have been already through that pain and could help with, and just sharing ideas. Because again, although My Southwark there's a lot of work gone into it, it's certainly by no means the finished article. There's lots of things we already want to do. There's lots of other things we're talking to our customers about and prototyping to see if they will actually solve an issue for them and how to take those forward. So we'll talk about some of those as well. And yeah, what's next? So some of our plans for the next phase of My Southwark, what we think are good ideas or enhancements that either are no-brainers to us in terms of bringing on new services that customers have told us that they want. But there are other things that we think might be useful, and how we're taking the prototype approach now. So actually go and ask users, is this what you want? How would you like to see it before we commit to designs and just giving them what we think they need. As I say, we've been working with Web Labs for over 10 years now. We started with e-forms, and now most of our online services are provided through Web Labs. Our main website, CMS, and our intranet are Web Labs products. Our e-forms are Web Labs products, and My Southwark has been developed, as I say, across that 5-year period with Web Labs 2. And it's the My Southwark part that I'll be concentrating on mainly today. And although obviously there are those integrations which we're happy to talk about, and luckily for once I've actually got all the guys here that can answer your questions. So we've got designers, developers, we've got support from our team, who can tell from the council's technical perspective what we do. Because although it says on previous slide, I work for IT and digital services, now my background is more in customer services, and the My Southwark product was moved over to IT and digital services last year. To coincide with the building of a digital IT and digital team, which works with sectors across the council around prioritising services that could be delivered more better digitally, and making sure they were prioritising on corporate strategies, but also priorities departmentally, rather than just who's got a budget, who's coming to us asking for help. So it's all sort of building together, hopefully, to a more cohesive way forward for Southwark to provide online services with residents and visitors and businesses. And Steve said again, I don't want to talk to you for an hour and a half. You don't want me to talk to you for an hour and a half. So this presentation will be around about 20 minutes. There'll be an overview of the functionality we've got and the other stuff we've said, and then hopefully we can dig down into some more detail about things that we're actually interested in. So what is My Southwark? Well, it's more than just a single signing account, but it is still a single signing account. So core to it is the fact that residents have multiple accounts with the council that they want to access. Historically, they'd have phoned up for or received paper statements for, and piecemeal parts of our organisation were addressing those issues. So council tax and benefits, they've created access to their accounts through a gangway service. Libraries had an online service. 5 years ago, we started looking, saying sort of where this is going. We'd rather it sort of got brought together for our users, so they haven't got, in 5 years' time, 10 different logins for the council to do 10 different things, 10 different passwords that they can't remember, that we make them change every 4 weeks. So that was kind of the preface for the beginning of our journey. Was we're already starting to see that things are being provided disparately. Can we stop that and make it so that going forwards we make it easy for users to log in one place? We've had mixed success, but we're still working on getting everything under that one roof, and we're probably ahead of some of the other councils out there. So today, people can sign in for their council tax, their business rates, all their benefits and council tax reduction. They can access their library account, their rent accounts. They can see their repairs history, raise new repairs. They can view their service charge accounts. There's a landlord section, which is benefits again, so I think landlords can sign in to see their benefits, and we've got property licensing section. When we first started, our initial offering just had, as I said, had council tax and benefits and libraries, which we had pulled together, and again we worked with each of those back-end suppliers, so we didn't recreate that functionality. We used the gameplay functionality for the revenues and benefits side of things, and worked out a single sign-in approach then. So at point of contact, an additional layer of authentication for that user. So when you first sign up for a My Southwark account, it's very simple. It was really just your name and address, an email address, which was your unique identifier. And we didn't do any additional authentication at that point. At the point you need to register with a back-end system which holds personal and sensitive data, then obviously we need to step that up, as well as giving those two systems a mechanism for identifying each other and allowing through the next time without going through that process again. So for benefits, they have to provide their housing benefit reference number, date of birth, national insurance number, I think of the three, and only an exact match and a unique match would allow that process to happen. When it does, that handshake between those two systems exists, so next time the person comes in, they just click on view and they're straight into that back-end portal. Obviously, different suppliers would have different things. You may have different data sets for different systems. We don't hold national insurance numbers for our rent account holders, so we can't use that as a unique identifying piece of data. So each of those integrations was done with different suppliers using different pieces of data, and always making sure that the primary thing was that people can only ever see their own data, but that it's only a process they have to go through once to be able to see their account the next time. So yeah, as I say, it's taken us several years to build up to all of those. They wouldn't all fit on one screenshot, but some of the others should show on the others. We have help sections on each of those, which explain the process of linking their account for the first time. So it tells them what they need, who the service is for. Again, that's something we've added fairly recently, following from feedback from users about where they're finding this journey tricky, or some of them are. So again, just adapting and building on the system intuitively, listening to what our customers are wanting and where they're having issues. This is fully bespokeable. They can add or remove these accounts if they don't have a library account, or they don't want one. If they don't have benefits, they don't have to see that every time they log in. They only see the accounts that are relevant to them. So for many people, this page will be much smaller. The design is fully responsive, so it will adapt to whichever viewport you've got, whatever device you're using. And that design was brought in a year ago. So the fully responsive design is only a year old. So again, another example of how we've been iterating the system over the years. So more than just a consolidated single sign-in account. What we also have in there is everyone's saved and completed e-forms. So if you're signed into your MySouthwark account and you go to complete any form on the council websites, it will pre-populate the known data we have. So most of your contact details, name, address, email, phone number, etc. So you don't have to review those every time. And you can save it automatically, or it will automatically save it for you if you're within your account on every page that you go through, and you can return to it at any time through your MySouthwark account. As well as your saved forms, it also shows all your completed forms, so you've got a point of reference at any point in the future to go back with your reference number, with the form you completed, on the date you did it, so if there's any issues you can take that with the service area. Another section in MySouthwark is the recommended services. About 2 years ago, we added 11 questions to our registration process. They're non-mandatory, you don't have to answer them, but they're all questions just so we can help you to make best use of the services that we have to offer you, or for us to promote services to you. So it's things like, what's your age range? Do you live in the borough? Do you work in the borough? Are you looking for work in the borough? Do you drive? What's your tenure type? So all those sorts of things, and we use that information when they first register to promote services that we think would be appropriate to them. So if they're appropriate for a free swimming gym, if the demographics they've given us indicates that they're going to be eligible for that, we give them a quick route through to that. They may not be aware of it, so it's an opportunity for us to promote services that may be of use to our residents without them having to go actively looking for them. For example, there is just apply for a job. In a way, this is about future-proofing. Later on, I'll talk about some of the things we want to do around event-driven processes. So things like a change of name if someone gets married. But at the moment, they have to go to multiple different parts of the council to tell each of them that they changed their name, provide documentation, etc., etc. And we'd like to have more tighter ways of doing that. That's easier for our residents. So that's something we're working on going forward. And some of the technology we've put around this, around the rules of when we would recommend a service or not, is part way to allowing us to think about how we can do that effectively going forwards. But for now, it's what it is. If we recommend things, if we think that they're going to have use to people. Not just at the registration phase, it's also seasonally. So if at Christmas we've got a top task for getting your Christmas tree shredded, or it's time to sign up for schools, and we know you've got kids, we can put a prompt on there to again tell you this might be something you need to be thinking about or you might benefit from. Free tasks is really just what it says. Whatever I do most when I'm logged in terms of top tasks, it will display those back to me, so I don't have to keep going looking for it. If I make payments for my rent every month, it's going to show up there. If I'm always complaining my bin's not being collected, again, that's going to show there. Never happens here though. So again, there's an algorithm in the background there that looks at what I've been doing when I've been signed into my account, which processes I've been looking at, and it also compares how recently I've done that. So I might have done something 10 times 2 years ago, but it will start dropping off as more recent transactions take over. So it's a combination of frequency and use. And some we just make, we know you did it yesterday, but you're not going to want to do it again. If you applied to register for council tax, you submitted that form, you're not going to want to register again tomorrow. It's not something you do frequently, so some things we can exclude from that. All of these things, by the way, all of these settings, the way we choose which task we promote or we add in, is all controlled through the CMS. So we're not having to go back to Web Labs every time we want to make a change. There's not a cost involved every time we want to make a change. If we want to try something, we can try it with virtually no risk, and we can stop it if it doesn't work, or we can extend it if we do like it. So very much the CMS we've built with Web Labs has been around us being more self-sufficient in terms of how we use the product. And then we've got a section called the location services, which is your area. In our original version of My Southwark, which wasn't responsive, this was a very long list of over 40 data sets, which was based on where you lived. So we know your UPRN from the address you've given us, and we can tell you who your local MP is, who your councillors are, your bin collection dates, all the standard stuff. We can tell you your nearest 10 childminders, 10 applications for planning that are nearest to your house, all those sort of things. Again, there's about 40 of those, and they extend beyond council services to things like, I don't know what to call them, what used to be Boris bikes, but now just calm bikes, whatever they are. All those sorts of things are there, training services, your nearest GP. That list was getting a bit long, and it was getting a bit cumbersome, and although people could opt in and out, we wanted something that would future-proof our design a little bit going forwards. So we worked with Web Labs to structure it in a way that mirrors the website, so grouping services together rather than just a long list of things. So things like health and wellbeing. I apologise, I've got some slides missing. We've had a technical issue with one of our servers, and I can't pull down the GIS data that's driving this when I was doing the slides, but we're hoping that if that gets resolved today, we can show you on the laptop. So each of these sections, which again are customisable, I can choose as many or as few as I'm interested in. If I don't have kids, I'm probably not going to be worried about schools and childcare at this point. I can just remove that from my view. I add it in back at any point I like. Very straightforward tick cross boxes that are on the update screen. Each of these will have a drawer. Within there will be top tasks associated with that. So again, if you open up the bins and recycling section, it will tell me my bin collection dates and my nearest recycling sites, etc. But it will also give me those top tasks associated with that service, like in this bin collection. So I don't have to go back out of the system, back into the website to find those. It's trying to pull those together so if people are using My Southwark as their routing to self-service for My Southwark, they're not pushed in and out of the website. Although that said, we do also have the option within each of these drawers to add links back into the website, either internally or externally, to provide additional evidence or information they might be interested in. And again, I hope to be able to show you that later, but I don't have a slide for it. So again, fully bespokeable, they've got, and it covers pretty much everything that the council does. The address it uses defaults to your home address you've registered My Southwark on, but if you want to check for a different address, if you want to look something up for your mum, or because you're on the move, on the bus, you can just type in a different postcode and choose that address, or even on your mobile phone, we're working so you can just use your GPS of where you are now. So if you want to know where your nearest parking is, you can just use that and it will tell you, well, from where you are now, these are your nearest parking areas, or if you're looking for a place to play tennis, it will tell you where your nearest courts are to be able to play that. Nearest leisure centres, planning and building controls the same. So there's a whole host of stuff there which again is just unique to the person, either because it's a single return, so it's static in that these are your councillors for your ward. That's not going to move depending on your choices, but other things are nearest. So you've got a choice of how far you want that to go out or not. It would have been handy to be able to show you rather than
just pops up on your laptop where it says that. But
your battery's very low.
Kevin.
That's the computer, not me.
I'll switch it on for you.
Thank you.
And the final area on the site is, of course, there's the profile that you can change. You can update your personal details, your contact details, your home address if that does change. But we also manage all your subscriptions with the council here. So in terms of which newsletters you're interested in receiving about Southwark, so we've got a number of Southwark Life newsletters and housing newsletters. You choose here if you want to receive those now or going forwards. You can do that at registration, but you can log in at any time and change those subscriptions. Similarly, the email notifications. So do you give us permission to contact you about changes to My Southwark or about other council services that we think you might be interested in? And we can also add in bespoke things. So planning policy asked if we could add a specific one in for them. They were maintaining their own register of email addresses and who they could contact. And they asked if we could put it into My Southwark, and since we have, I think it's about tripled in terms of the number of subscribers they've got, just because of the visibility that they get by being in the larger community rather than just a single managed area. This is integrated with our corporate mailing system, Gov Delivery, which some of you may be using. So again, their standard products for Gov Delivery would be that you would manage your subscriptions through a signing process to that. Again, we've made that effectively single signing by having integration between My Southwark and Gov Delivery, so we manage that through your account, which we think works well. So that's all nice. Lots of work's gone into that. We've got lots of work on of stuff up there that people can use, but does anyone actually use it? So we've just got a few headline figures to emphasise what we've achieved. So 205,000 activated accounts for My Southwark, which actually covers 76% of the residential properties in the borough. Again, we get that step by looking at the counts we've got and UPRNs that are associated with it that are unique. So we know that about 3/4 of our unique properties in the borough have at least one My Southwark account attributed to them. And we still get around 700 new people sign up every week. That's been pretty much steady for the last 4 years or so. When we first went live, it was about 200 a week. And what we put in place at that point was a promotional page. So if you clicked on any web form on our website and you weren't logged into your account, it would take you to an interim page and say, oh, did you know these are all the benefits of My Southwark account? Would you like to sign up now and then proceed? We were a bit worried. We thought people might find that a bit pushy, a bit in their face, but we thought we'd give it a try again. If it didn't work, we would just take it down. As it happened, we got very little pushback in terms of people finding it negative. You only get it once per session, so unless you've cleared your cookies down, it's not going to keep popping up for you. If you say no thanks, it just takes you to the form. But we pretty much tripled the number of subscriptions we were getting to My Southwark by doing that. We've replaced with the new design the interim page that we used initially with a slightly more high-tech modal overlay, which does the same thing but looks a bit nicer. Well, I think so. It's a bit purple, but personal taste. And we get around 22,000 unique logins each month. So about 10% of our users on average would log into their account, which I don't think is too bad. I mean, I don't log into my local authority's account very often at all. It's just I rush home on a Friday night, desperate to log in and see what's going on at Dixon Council, which is where I live. So I think people are doing quite a lot of transactions on there, those that need to use it. Digging down just a little bit deeper, so they're the login rates and registration rates, but in terms of clicking through to the account side of things, we get about 58,000 click-throughs to our sub-accounts every month. Leading the way is council tax with last month 27,000 click-throughs to the council tax accounts. Housing applications 3,500. Probably like to get that a bit lower if we're honest, but that's a political thing. 13,000 people clicking through to see their rent accounts. So not bad. and certainly helps to reduce the number of telephone calls we get and inquiries we get. And again, some of the others, it's work in progress, we're going to improve these, and in some cases it's not a service that people use all the time. We need to accept that. You know, there's a saturation point for how useful some stuff we put on there will be. What's next? So some of our plans and some of the opportunities we're looking into. Again, these change a lot. I did a presentation for the Chartered Institute of Housing about 2 years ago, and I looked at what we were saying our plans were then. Some of them are still on this list. Others have just dropped off the list completely, and others have been replaced and delivered in that time. And I think that's just part of accepting that the world's changed a bit in terms of planning these sorts of projects and services, accepting what our users actually want changes quite frequently. The way we're delivering stuff is changing all the time, and we just need to be able to be reactive to that. And I have to say that I think as a supplier, Web Labs has been very good to work with in that. They've been very supportive of our agile approach and flexible approach to doing stuff. You know, we're not tied down to tight specifications and tight timescales that have to be delivered, and any variance from the initial scope, you know, sets you back hugely in terms of time, effort, and cost. It's far more fluid than that, and that's worked really well for us. And I don't think we could have got where we are without that sort of relationship. So I think that's been a really important thing for us. So, as I said, we've not got everything on there that we want. It's aspirational to have it as the one-stop shop for all of our customers' needs, but we've got a lot, and we're certainly hoping this year to be adding the parking account and the planning portal into our single sign-in. So, at the moment, parking are going through a process where they already have on-street parking with a user account provided by a third-party supplier. We've got very complicated parking arrangements where the estates, which are still council owned, are managed by a completely separate process. They're joining those, and when they do, we're going to bring them into the family of the single sign-in, hopefully later this year. The planning portal is another thing that our customers keep saying, well, why can't I just log in through my Southwark? So it's something we're working with our suppliers on getting that single sign-in to the planning portal. Again, we're not trying to provide all this back-end functionality from scratch. We're trying to either use existing portals that are there, or best-of-breed ones that we bring on new, and use MySouthwark to pull them together as the route to them, rather than trying to start from scratch, which will be probably cost-inhibitive for us. Payments are another thing that we're really keen to get online very soon into the MySouthwark account, so they will be brought within the account section. And it's something that we're actively prototyping, what that would look like, where we should show it to them. And enhancements to your area of customization, which I didn't get to show you. Again, we're looking at where there are large pieces of data brought back, so if your nearest 15 childminders, you could have a sliding scale there, which actually I just want to see the nearest 3. And it could bespoke the way that they're displayed to you using much smarter ways of design, rather than lots of data that you may not be interested in. So that's something we're working on. And a customer dashboard. This was going to be a separate part where we were looking at pulling across key bits of data. So of those 27 council tax users, what were we actually wanting to see? We're making them click through to their accounts and trawl through that. If 80% of them just want to see what's my current balance, what's my next payment date, and I want to change my payment method, why don't we pull those key bits into a summary page, so that all that information about their council tax account and their benefits and whatever else, their rent account system, is there for them to see on the one page. So that's again something we're prototyping at the moment. We're talking to our customers to say, where would you like to see that information? What is the information you'd like to see there? And then drafting that into a prototype and seeing what they think of that before we move into a design phase. User authentication. This would be very useful for us. It'd be very handy if we could authenticate our users at the point of registration, so we know who they are, so that we don't have to go through. It would open up the gates for us to be far more effective in delivering outcomes for our residents if we could pass across forms that they completed in MySouthwark, and we could confidently tell that service area that this person has been authenticated, so they don't have to go back to the user and say, please bring in proof of where you live, please bring in proof of who you are. That we could do that at an account level. That's not something currently that Verify have been working on to any great depth, but we're trying to keep in touch with them so that when they move away from individual processes of using Verify to authenticate users, that we can be a pilot and get on board there so that we can authenticate not at a process level but at an account level and a person level, which is where we think we will be able to move on then to the life event processes I touched on earlier. You know, we really need to have those authentication parts in place for the account to make those work well. We can make a step forward and we can control processes of, say, changing name going to 10 different departments. But until we've got a central authentication that we can pass across that they will trust, it won't reach its full potential in terms of savings for us in terms of effort as a council, but also for the customer in terms of effort. So, thank you. That's a whistle-stop tour of My Southwark. As I said, we're really hoping that you'll have some more in-depth questions about anything that I've spoken about any of our plans, about anything you're planning to do that you'd like to talk to either us at Southwark about or Web Labs. As I say, we've got a full team here, so I'll take the opportunity to pick their brains or ask any questions or debate anything you think would be interesting.
Okay, Dave, I think if you take this section, you're going to need to sit down, otherwise you're going to, your legs are going to give way. So I'm wondering if people do have questions, please ask away. What I'd ask you to do is if you could say who you are, if you're from a particular local authority, please. And also, Dave, I'd like to ask you a question because one thing that wasn't mentioned there was the integration with the NHS, so the Clinical Commissioning Group. They actually approached you, is that correct?
That's right, yeah, we did some work with the NHS a year or so ago, 18 months ago.
Okay.
They didn't really know what they wanted at the initial point, but they wanted an online presence, they wanted a way of promoting a tool that they've got called Help Now, which was a diagnosis type tool, a bit like so if you were poorly or you wanted to know where to go for help, it would take you through a set of questions, so it was intelligence based. And they developed that, but they weren't getting very many people to see it, and they wanted to build an account themselves that people would sign into, but they didn't want to build that route from scratch. So they asked if they could effectively piggyback the following that My Southwark could gain, so that they could be a service that could be accessed or promoted through My Southwark without being a different thing that customers would have to sign up for in isolation. So yeah, we did some integration and work with them on that. And Help Now is available through both My Southwark and the council website. So that's integration that we did with Web Labs to allow that. It's like fully branded as a Southwark website, but the back end again is pulling data all through from an NHS-owned database and system. So we're not responsible for managing that. We're just helping to promote it and make sure it's available in a way that's accessible for our residents.
So you can get access to information about doctors, dentists, pharmacies, and I think the roadmap is even being able to book a doctor's appointment. I think would be the end game.
We're still in touch with the CCG, Clinical Commissioning Group, NHS, and yeah, stage 2 was certainly looking at the options for embedding that within My Southwark, that you could actually get access to your GP surgery, to make appointments, cancel appointments, etc. So I think that's a potential pilot we'd be doing with a number of surgeries, and obviously we refine that down to the pilot group for that. But that'd be a really interesting one. So again, spread across beyond just Southwark and what's useful for Southwark residents rather than just Southwark Council.
Thanks. Guy there's got his hand up, yeah?
Yeah, and Jade O'Neill's from RBKC. I presume a lot of the services have different back office systems. How did you find the integration into all those various, probably in some cases, legacy systems?
It varied a lot. I mean, both in terms of the business units within the council and their approach to doing it, but as you say, the actual providers and the systems that were available to us to work with. Some were fairly quick. Libraries was very straightforward and relatively cheap to do, which was one of the first ones we did. But again, it was also one of the most simple, because the authentication was very low. There was very low risk of personal data or access to systems that we had to worry about, whereas things like benefits obviously are far more sensitive as our rent accounts and payments. A lot depends on, as you say, what sort of system is at the back end. So the Gandlake, which was the council tax and benefits one, wasn't too tricky because that's not linking to an actual live database. It's linking to a scrape that Gandlake do that they then present to us. So the risk to us of any sort of data issues is reduced. The Northgate housing self-service system, which we linked to for rents, service charges, repairs, is linking to an actual live database. So a higher level of security was required. Those proxies and things I don't understand need to be put in place to make sure that not only was the connection very secure, but even if someone hacked, it was ring-fenced into what the dangers were for that in terms of the council's estate. So all sorts of different things there. So it does vary a lot between different departments, different systems and different suppliers in terms of how willing they are to join in with our approach. Not all of them were particularly keen in our single signing approach. Certainly early on, I think people were more open to it now, they expect it. But initially, some of them wanted us to use their standalone system. So they have an out-of-the-box package for rents, for example, and yes, we can have it, and our customers can use it, but they have to log in through their system. So again, it's something we wanted to not do. We wanted things to come through a single signing process, and it sometimes made it harder for us, sometimes made it longer, but we think it's also made it more successful and easier for our customers. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, and that maybe just a quick follow-up.
Yeah, sure.
Did any of the services derive any business efficiencies from their customers using My Southwark to put in their transaction request?
Yeah, I mean, it's not something we've set to targets on. I mean, individual service areas, I mean, they still own those back-end systems. We haven't taken on ownership of the housing self-service or the Gandlake service, which is actually being replaced imminently because they've left the market. So service owners still retain those parts of the system. We are the gateway, I guess, and the people that manage the overarching account. Lost my thread on what the question was. It was
Savings.
savings, yes, of course,
Savings.
the big question. Yeah, I mean, when we first did the council tax and benefits, they had a 10% reduction in the number of calls they received over the first sort of year that we launched My Southwark. So that's pretty tangible and easy to read into that we contributed to that. Again, it's difficult to be sure of the causality between something we do and a benefit that's realised at the back end or for the customer, because there may be many different things contributing to that. But I certainly think it's clear that we've helped. And one of the other things, again, that the reason for trying to get everything together is that almost cross-pollination. So someone comes in to see their council tax account and sees that they can actually also see their rent account, which they couldn't do before, or they can apply for this or that. So these different services get the boost of people just being in that vicinity and being able to see they can do other things easily from where they already are, rather than having to go and look for them. So the recommended for you sections has been powerful, and I think that's where My Southwark's coming into its own a bit now in terms of benefits. It's helping with things like consultations. So we recently had a consultation in Rotherhithe, which is an area where it's got pretty appalling broadband, and there was a customer consultation about what we should do about it. And we were able to promote that consultation through My Southwark, partly by promoting it through the We Recommend, again looking at who actually lives in Rotherhithe and let's promote it to those people who it actually affects, but also doing a check of our database of who's agreed to receive promotional or information from us about My Southwark or other council services, and of those 205,000 residents, which ones are appropriate to take part in that consultation. And we emailed them and said, this is happening, have your say, get involved. And I think it led to an extra 1,000 or so people participating in that consultation, which, although it doesn't sound a massive number, it was actually the largest ever consultation I think Southwark had ever had on a similar size consultation, so it can have a really dramatic effect on all sorts of services and on reaching our customers and being proactive rather than always assuming that they've got to log in to actually benefit from having a MySouthwark account.
Can I just pick up on your efficiency savings question? Because I think the question we would want to, I think most people would be interested in, is obviously return on investment, because there's an investment into getting to this infrastructure in place. So I know you've talked about reductions in the customer services team. Everyone, if you could articulate some of that maybe.
First, I mean, that was an obvious one when we first started with MySouthwark, because we could easily measure that. But yes, we do lots of working with the service areas at the point of writing a business case for what they want to do. Do they have funding? What are their aspirations or their hopes in terms of having a return on investment? The core product of MySouthwark was, I think, relatively cheap for us to put in place. It's not too many commercial confidences at this point, but it was a lot less than I know a lot of capital was spent on developing customer accounts. Where the costs have tended to be higher has been where it's been third-party integrations, and that's perhaps where the costs have been. So in those cases where the service that would be commissioning that piece of work would need to bear those things in mind when they're creating their business case as to what they're hoping to achieve. As the MySouthwark product owner, I don't track all the benefits for each of the services. I can't do that. And so Exchequer Services would track the benefits that they are looking for by putting things online, and equally housing, etc., and all those other services. And again, I think it's getting harder for us to pinpoint specifics because it's all cross-pollinating now. So again, we're getting a lot of other benefits that aren't the ones perhaps that we thought we were going to get earlier on. And some of the things are still to come. I mentioned the life events where we can manage events in people's lives as a process, as a council, and the benefits for us potentially going forward there are really big. You know, at the moment, if someone changes their name or changes address, they might have to tell 10 different departments, and 10 different departments ask them to prove that they've moved and have to go through a change process. So we wouldn't have to do the same level of authentication across the council, and the customer gets a much simpler route forward. So yes, there are specific savings that individual departments have made by doing things on MySouthwark. I think corporately going forward, the benefits are getting even bigger as we tap into being able to promote services far more actively than we ever could before, and actually reach our customers in a targeted fashion and increase take-up of our services.
Just at the point I'm getting to, you've seen a big reduction in the volumes in the customer services team in terms of phone and face-to-face?
Yeah, I mean, our customer service contact centres are just dropping year on year. The size that we've got there is reducing. We're doing some work at the moment on environmental services, getting those online and through MySouthwark. And you know, the idea is that ultimately they will close the contact centre. Those services will be online only. So there are tangible cost savings in terms of headcount reduction, effectively, across the council that we've achieved and will be ongoing achievement.
Any more questions? At the back, please.
Chelsea Woodard, Rural Council. I'm just wondering what your main engagement mechanisms were for engaging customers in terms of developing products?
We're getting much better at that. Early on, I think we were looking for our minimum viable product, which was so was the council tax. It was getting what was already out there under one umbrella. So the initial version of MySouthwark, I'd say we weren't very good at that actually. We didn't speak to very many customers, but we had to pull what we already had together in a way that they could do it. We have feedback forms that we get quite a lot of from customers, so as well as help, we also invite their feedback. We have the GovMetrics feedback options on our website, which also covers MySouthwark as well. So we look at all that sort of stuff. Now, so we put a lot of effort into the new digital team, into learning more about how best to engage with our users. We've done courses through Acumen, through Government UK, on how to effectively engage with our customers, to seek out what they actually require in an unleading way so that we can actually get to the heart of it rather than going, would you like this? And then you say yes. Would you like that faster? Yes. Again, I think we've got a lot better at that, and it's something we're actively doing now. So I mentioned before we're looking at some changes to a dashboard and adding payments in. But before we're getting too ahead of ourselves, we're saying, right, we're going to do that and we're going to put it there and it's going to look like this because that'd be great. It's some pretty basic prototypes, get some user groups together. And sometimes it's just a group of people internally. We've got lots of Southwark residents working in this building, and they're happy to take part. And you just have a chat with them that don't work within IT, that they're people we can talk to, and just get an overview initially. Is this something you'd be interested in? Where would you expect to see that? How does this look? And then we iterate that process before we move across to a costing into the design phase. But that's certainly something we're still learning and we're still getting better at. But it's the seed is planted there now that I don't always know what's best for my customers, and I'm going to ask them occasionally before we crack on too far.
Simon Garden from Enfield. Got a couple of questions here actually. The first one would be, it fascinated me that the conversation I had before we started was that you just removed the phone number off the website. And that prompted me to think of the member dimension, the councillor dimension here. If you do stuff like that, they generally in their ward consultations take a bit of a hit if you can't contact the council. How you used to do it, just phoning up. How did you take them on that journey?
I hired quite a lot. No, I think it was a conscious decision when we built the new websites over the last 2 years. So, and there has been obviously a drive to try and move people online if we can. And if they've got onto our website, then they're there. So why can't we try and get them to do what they need to do there? So there was this corporate view was that that's where we go. We want to move that way. So, but equally, it's very much based on the services as well. So if they don't have an online option that is suitable, you can't remove your phone number.
Yeah.
And it's about getting the balance right between how mature is your online or other digital approach for this. That could be an automatic phone line to allow you to get where you want. So no, we don't actively publish the council's corporate number anymore. We haven't done for about 18 months, but some service areas still have their phone numbers very prominent. So again, that's owned by the service area. I don't say you can't have a phone number. It's that's their call. But again, we just talk with them. If we can offer a really good online alternative, that will be what we push, and there might be the phone numbers further down the page. So we make them go through the course of action to do it online before we get there. But that's something our team of change and innovation managers are working with each department on, getting their priorities for how we can move things forward and how we can best deliver it. In terms of members and officers, it's sometimes been tricky, but sometimes it's been a lot easier than we thought. That particular one, we do get a lot of negative feedback from customers saying, oh, I just want the phone number. And a lot of them do still want that. And we just have to almost take that as on the chin in terms of, we've avoided having a KPI around smileys on the website, because a lot of the things we've got negative feedback about was things that were an active decision by us. So I don't want to measure myself on people not liking being able to find a phone number, because there's not really any point in doing that. It's trying to focus on other things. Some of the online services that we changed probably are a better example of where we thought we'd have a lot of challenge by making them online only. So one was the housing register. Very big borough in terms of being a landlord. We're still the largest landlord in London, and obviously lots of people want to be housed by Southwark, and we have a very long housing register, which you're actually probably never going to get housed through, but it doesn't stop the interest being there. But it used to be that the process was you would go down to Bournemouth Road, which was down in Peckham, and you'd walk through the door and you'd go through a process that was quite long to get onto the housing register. You'd see someone face to face and have an interview, and that was the way that it was dealt with. and we worked with them to get an online form initially, and then to move that online only. And we were a bit worried, and we did get some members saying, hang on a minute, this is a very diverse community. The people that are looking for housing are vulnerable. This isn't going to work. So we didn't jump straight to barricading the doors shut and turning off the telephones. We launched the telephone, we launched the e-form, and then we had a support backup of a telephone service. So anyone that couldn't complete the form or didn't have a support group or an advocate to do it for them could phone this phone line, and these people would effectively just do the form for you. So it was one form dealt with through all the channels, and the team manned up quite heavily in terms of making sure that they could meet the demand for that, because say we get like 1,000 applications a month or plus, and so they had to make sure they could cope with that demand. And it turns out that after the first few months of looking at it, it was less than 1% of applications were being made through our internal advocacy service. The numbers hadn't dropped, the demographics hadn't changed, so it wasn't that people were just not finding the way to apply or weren't applying anymore. It was just that actually a lot of those support groups actually exist within their communities or within their families, and the council doesn't have to necessarily fill that void that doesn't exist anymore. People are more self-sufficient than we think, and we proved that with that. We very similarly with blue badge applications, which again another demographic that's potentially volatile and that members would be a bit sensitive about pushing too hard to go online. But the reality has shown that they're ready, or their support groups are in place to support them, and it's something where we can make savings. But also, we got a lot of very positive feedback from the blue badges moving online. The process sped up dramatically, complaints dropped dramatically, and people were getting a better service. So some of the fears are there to be dispelled, as you say, and often the easiest way is to pick a few as a pilot, deliver them and say, well, this one works, why shouldn't that one?
Can I just follow up?
Yeah, sure.
It's something you've touched on it, and it's the sensitive data stuff. So we have lots of people applying for benefits. You ask them to send them all sorts of information. I'm sure I'm not the first council here, but I'm seeing with Charterhouse schools here that we've got people scanning stuff and indexing it and sending it off into boxes so that benefits assessors can have a look at it and then forward it on. Obviously, in an ideal world, we'd like that to all happen online, so that somebody can send that proof in over the electronic means, and then it cuts out that manual handling effectively of all the documents that come in, and some we have to send back out again. Once we've seen that authentication, how you and I know you touched on it, how are you thinking of moving forward with that? What's the thought process there? And yes, I'm trying to steal a little bit of ideas.
Well, the ideas we've had for a long time, and they've been hard to progress, to be honest, in terms of that, and particularly services like benefits have been the main stumbling point in a way, because they've got legislation that dictates the level of evidence you need, and for a long time it had to be original documents, and it wasn't within the council's remit to say, actually, we're really happy with something a bit less, or we'll take their word for it. So there've been a few isolated services that made that tricky, but they were big enough to be a problem doing a corporate approach. Verify is what we're really hoping will help us with that. We're hoping that we can get our accounts authenticated as users through a verified process, and then we tag our account holder as authenticated. So unless they decide to change their name, they stay as an authenticated person, so then whatever they do, we can pass it through to benefits. So if they weren't on benefits, but we've authenticated them as a person to a level that is acceptable to the benefit service, through passport agency or whatever it might be, then the application would go through tagged as authenticated. That's what we're working towards. It's aspirational at the moment.
No, any tools in passport?
No, so Verify really from GDS are sitting in the middle of this. They've run the pilots for doing this for processes, so applying for blue badges and I think parking permits, things like that, but they haven't yet done it at an account level. So yeah, that verified process already exists. You've probably used it yourself if you're signing up for a new passport, so you don't have to supply lots of new evidence. They'll cross-check it to DVLA or the Inland Revenue and various other data sets that they've got access to, and that's what we want to tap into. So again, it's a trusted thing. It's something that our residents will have used on a national level, but that we NHS do want as an organisation, rather than, historically, services across the council have engaged with services like Experian or other credit agencies to verify people. Parking do that now, which is fine, but again, it's a lot of duplication, and we're trying to pull it back when we do deploy this, that it's an account level and that we control things from an account. And equally, again, we'll probably come on to it, one of the considerations will probably be GDPR and people controlling their own data. So if we can give the users control of who they are through their one account, then it's shared by consent each time they do a service through their MySouthwark account. So it deals with some of those issues potentially too.
Question over there?
Yeah, hi, I'm Tony Morrison, I'm from Redbridge. Nice to meet you. I've got a question for you. Obviously, this is one of your main channels, yeah, for customers to contact you. You're trying to grow that channel, no doubt, yeah, from what you've been saying significantly. You've got other channels though. You've got face-to-face. You've no doubt got social media in terms of where people want to contact you. And that's a growing trend.
Yep.
You've also got, you've also got people that want to call you still. How do you conjoin all that up together? Yeah, does this link into a CRM system where you can actually get that intelligence overall about what people are really contacting you about, and the volumes that you've got?
Well, we do have a digital strategy which sort of outlays for the council where we're going, that's published. We still have telephone services. We've got our corporate contact centre, which deals mostly with environmental issues and a few other things. There's a separate contact centre for our revenues and benefits service, and yes, we still have face-to-face drop-in centres, although much smaller than they were several years ago. But we still need them at the moment for some of the revenues and benefits stuff. We're still having to give that option to people to bring down their documents to be verified, as the previous guy was saying. So yes, we still do have those channels, but they are shrinking, and we're trying to encourage people across, and in other ways, at some point, maybe sour the milk of some of those services so they're not quite as good. It's a difficult one, isn't it, where you've got KPIs for your contact centre to answer 99% of calls and have 100% satisfaction and answer within 3 rings, and everyone's has delightful service, and then tell them, but please don't do that, please go over there and do it online. But when you've got a really good service, it's harder to get people to shift. So that's a tricky one, because those service areas won't want to reduce, maybe you go, well, we'll answer it within a minute, but we'll save some money because it means we can have 2 fewer people answering those types of calls. But that's a business decision, and it's a tricky one to make. But that might be the sort of thing would help with channel migration by souring the milk.
So do you have a CRM system that this all links into at the moment? So that, for example, if somebody did actually get frustrated with what was happening on the web, yeah, they couldn't get what they wanted, or get the result of the outcome that they wanted, they contacted you by telephone, would you be able to see that they've been on the web, what the web interactions actually were, so that you can actually have a little bit of intelligence, when you're actually having that initial dialogue with that caller?
Quick answer is no. We do have a CRM system. We have Microsoft Dynamics. Again, it's not used by the whole council, it's used by particular departments, so it's restricted in that way. We have actually recently created a link between MySouthwark and the CRM system. So it's early stages, we haven't progressed it too far yet, but we have got a process that is now in place whereby when someone signs into or up for MySouthwark, it will do a cross-check against our CRM system and say, does this person already exist? And if it can do a unique match, it will tie those accounts together to give us that opportunity to get that sort of data going forwards. But again, not everything goes into CRM. CRM is in itself currently a relatively isolated, if you look corporately, capturing all our data. So it's something we're actively looking at, but our CRM is being looked at anyway to see if it's. MySouthwark's adapting a lot. There's a lot more information coming in there. What is the future going forwards? Is it to have two different systems and link them together, or is it to look at a lighter touch CRM? Again, but with that view to achieving what you're suggesting. We don't have that yet, but we've done a couple of. I alluded earlier. Some of the stuff we do doesn't deliver an immediate benefit, but it gives an opportunity in the future. And again, this linking of MySouthwark with CRM gives us that opportunity to build on it, but it depends how big the CRM get. Can we get CRM used by everybody as well? That would open up the doors. Yeah. So it's. Yeah.
Can I just expand on that question? One other thing, on the My Southwark thing, we do have a mini CRM that controls all the accounts, and that does anything they do when they're online. We record that, and so they can have that information at hand if they need to.
Yeah. So online we've got a better picture, but we don't yet have the capacity to cross-check. So yeah, Mr. Smith is using the online service for this service and this service, but he always phones up for this. Why is that? Can we look at that process? Is it because it's not available online, or is it because it's not working, or is there another reason? And that would be really great intelligence, which we haven't got yet.
At Redbridge we're doing, so we're actually using Power BI at the moment. We're building a really good intelligence hub over there where we're drawing all the data into one place, so that we can make the right decisions cooperatively. Are you looking at Power BI yourself as a tool? Is this information that's actually very valuable information when it comes to customer interaction and what people are interested in being fed into that process?
I might ask my
to
boss.
answer that question? Yes, so we're looking at kind of the data across the council. I've made a joke earlier for some council. That's one of the tools that we're looking at, because I don't think we're really keen on using like a specialist data analysis tool simply again because of cut budgets and small entities. So we're looking at things like Power BI on Tableau where we can actually put the tools back into our SMEs kind of hands rather than like a specialist team. But adding on to the CRM discussion, as you know, we talked about, we're looking at reducing our contact center staff and teams who are doing that as block councils. So the question is for us now is there really a need to have a single view of a customer, because we won't have a team that will be actually concentrating on that. That's why we're actually kind of fully fast in doing a review of our CRM systems, whether it be through Webland or Dynamics, and also as part of joining the shared service with Brett and Lewisham. They're also looking to build CRM capability. So we're kind of reviewing across from a strategic point of view whether do we need that single view of a customer, and also looking at what kind of systems are coming up through our partnerships.
Got any more questions? Yes, sorry, this lady here first.
Sorry, my name is Majella Sharma. I used to be interim councillor, but
Okay.
I left.
Okay, thank you.
I'm employed now. So just a quick question. Do you have an app that actually runs on the back of obviously my Southwark account? And also, is there a text functionality sort of set up within your existing systems that can actually text to that app? So people who are working and who are on the go. Because I used to find sometimes people don't have the time to log in when they go home, or they forget. And when they're on the go, when they're sitting in the train, they need to log in Spain, or they need to pay council tax. That the app actually.
We don't have an app at Southwark. I don't know if Weblabs offer an app.
We do some apps, but like we found most days now, we have fully responsive designs now that works really on the mobiles. So
yeah, so the standard site should just, if you open up on the mobile, it should just be responsive and.
Yes, and they would mirror obviously.
Yeah, but it's laid out. In fact, the designer's sitting next to me, so. But it is so that I'm hopefully correct here that the site, because of the way it's designed, as soon as you go down to a mobile form factor, it reconfigures itself and it becomes an app, but it's in the browser.
Fantastic. Because we had a system in the contact centre called. It was a waste system that used to feed that information directly into the CMS, and then that could text out to the customer if there was a missed correction, and give them the revised date, which was really helpful because they didn't need to contact the contact centre. The information was actually fed to them instantly, which
Yeah.
reduces the volume of calls and less the necessity to action.
That is one of the things that we are in discussion with some of doing the waste and misbins, and I think that's the type of feedback.
Yeah, there's some of that going on with waste, and some of that functionality exists in the back-end systems as well. So some of the waste services they've already got the functionality to text people where something happens without coming back through a My Southwark type application. Same with housing. So there's a communal repair, or your lift's broken and they've got your phone number. There's some proactive texting for that sort of thing, which isn't done through My Southwark. It's done through those back-end processes, but there may be someone who would choose to do it through My Southwark in the future.
Can I just pick up on that? I know I've got another question to come in a second, but I think what's important is that Southwark have been able to keep the existing ICT infrastructure and the systems that are in place in the back office and enable the seamless transformation of that using the website and using what's called the WebLabs Bridge system. And WebLabs Bridge is integrated in something like 90 different systems, and text messaging, for example, is one of those. So it gives you that flexibility and that ability to bolt that on if that's something you've already got, or integrate with it. So be it a payment system, be it a text messaging system, be it CRM, be it a back office system like Bartek for waste and collection, which is quite a common one. Those integrations have been done. The good thing about that is, because it's been done in Southwark and other councils, they're in place. So you can access those integrations because they've been done, the systems exist. It works in My Southwark, it's being delivered to 205,000 people in London. So that's the beauty of almost replicating what Southwark have done. Southwark have been the pioneers and pretty much paid for most of that. So there's an opportunity for other councils to leverage that type of development as well. Okay. Did you have a follow-up question before I move on? Okay, thank you.
So one thing about
yeah.
apps in general. I think a lot of people understand apps as being something streamlined and quick to the point to do a task. So the way that we like to look at the website now is not so much the website in the old sense of it, we call it a web app. So the design is very much what you experience in some of the well-designed apps these days. So as the home device, bring your own devices to work and people's personal investments in good mobile phones, the technology is getting so good now that the website renders so nicely that you almost have to make a business case to say, well, do we really need an app? Because it's an additional cost. And then you've got to look at Android and iOS as well, which are again additional costs, which are all possible, but they're extra. So,
But then you've got that site, I don't know if many of you use it, it's called Better Connected.
right,
And
yeah.
if you look on that website, you'd be surprised at how many councils actually fail and who rate and score
Yeah.
really badly, because they're not set up in a way that actually, iPhones and Androids can work compatibly with the websites.
The one thing that we've obviously done a number of apps for the phone. The real time we actually really concentrate on making something an app is if you need access to GPS, camera, that kind of thing. If you need access to hardware, which you can't do through a website usually, that's when we normally make an app. You will see a little bit later on mobile working, so which
We have an app.
Exactly, yeah. So we do have apps, but sometimes it's easier just to pop a web page open. As long as the website is responsive, you go to the site, you open it up, and it looks like, to be honest, the designs we have, they look like an app anyway. If you actually go to this site and open it up in your mobile phone in the browser, it does look like an app. You can save it to the desktop, to the display, and it's an app. But it doesn't have access to the hardware's internal, the camera. So when we're doing things like the mobile working, you might want to take a photo of something. That's then that's the time it needs to be an app. And of course, it is. So sometimes you use an app, and sometimes you use the web page. I know because I've done a few, so it's quite good fun. The app's always nice, but sometimes you put the effort into the app, and it's easy now to develop cross-platform, which we do that now. You're going to see that later on. But sometimes if you make it a responsive website, and it just works beautifully, and I think people are coming to that thing. With the caveat of the access to the hardware.
And the cost to sell it.
It is a lot cheaper, yeah. It's a lot cheaper.
Conscious we had another question.
Yeah.
Okay, Paul Thorpe from Bexley. 6 months into public sector, so figured my naive questions come from a commercial background. I'm really intrigued by how the My Account kind of proposition is needed. Why do residents need a relationship through My Account anyway? And what customer insight have you got beyond just asking sort of survey questions? What actually sort of builds your direction? So, on the basis you've got over 200,000 registered, and you've also got about 10% frequently using your services through a digital platform per month. I'm intrigued because probably half those services you don't need to register, you don't need to do anything other than just make a demand.
You know, our approach has been, we promote My Southwark, but we don't force you to use it, which I know some councils have chosen to be a bit more aggressive in terms of that. So if you want to do anything for council tax, for example, if you want to register for a single person discount, you can't just do the single person discount form and that's it. 'Cause I think for a lot of people, that's all they want to do. Once a year, they might contact their council, and a once-off transaction is all they're interested in. They don't need an account, they're not interested in one, and we shouldn't be forcing them in our opinion. So, well, we encourage them by telling them the benefits of it when they go to do that, and give them the option. We don't force them to do it. The only things they have to really sign up for is if they want to see their account information, which obviously needs that authentication and to actually link to a system, so we can't just make that open to anybody. So the account stuff, they have to have an account to see, which I guess is pretty obvious. But most of the transactional stuff we don't force people to do. We just try and make it a bit easier if they choose to do it through My Southwark, because it's just easier. So we haven't gone down the route of forcing people, and yet we've still got a really high take up for a lot of those services. So there may come a point where we make people, because that's the point where you make a decision, we want to withdraw it from another channel. If that level of being assertive of channel shift comes about, which is where I guess other councils have got to, it's where it becomes mandatory to have an account to do certain things. That's not where we've gone to date. We've tried to leave it, you know, if it's something that is a one-off transaction, why should we force you to go down a route of having to register for an account to do it if you're not interested in one? I don't know if that...
Can I add to that? Yeah, I mean, adding to the convenience side of things, that is exactly why we provide it. So you don't have to enter your address every time you have to request for like a bulky waste collection, or you don't have to sign into individual systems if you're, for example, trying to pay parking, etc. It is more of a convenience, and touching on what we were saying before for a single customer, we're not necessarily gathering this information so that we can provide really great insights like Amazon does, for example, and then upsell activities. We do some of that through being able to offer more consultations that are specific to a particular user group. For example, Dave was talking about the long-high broadband services, but the majority of the time it is just for that convenience sake, so that you have all of the services that you can access under one umbrella, and you only necessarily need to just log in once to do it. And when it comes to custom insights, we know when a service is bad, or we offer a bad service, so we get tons of complaints on it. So it's about, for us, fixing that service rather than going down into that kind of deep level of customer insight at this point, because simply our services are at that level of maturity rather than beyond that more complicated where you're looking at analytics and going beyond that.
I'm just really intrigued in what are the barriers to entry. So why, if I'm standing outside my property, my bin hasn't been collected, I'm drunk from the night before, the first thing I want to do is just phone and say, well, why don't you collect the bin? I don't want to get that point where I'm standing in the front garden trying to register for a service which you only allow through that process. So I'm just really intrigued, why would a resident really want to have a relationship with a local authority through a My Account environment? And I'm just really intrigued about what other insights have you got which has actually driven that for us?
Now, I can't say that everybody wants to engage with us through My Southwark or through the website. Some people, like I say, all they will ever want to do is pick up the phone. But there's a cost to that. And for us to maintain those more expensive channels and telephone services, it's a cost to us, and it's a cost to them ultimately through their council tax and through lots of other services. So if we can't make savings in some ways, we can't necessarily protect other services or improve them in other areas that are perhaps more important to them. So yeah, if you give the simple question to someone, do you want to still get to phone up for that? They're probably always going to say, yeah, great, choice, it's what I would like choice, and that's important. But if you simply, but we're going to close a library if we maintain that telephone service for something else, then it might be a different answer. So it's, again, it's about how important those things are and the priorities for the council and for our residents as a whole. And a lot of that does come through from councillors in terms of what are the key services that our customers want to have protected. We've not closed any of our libraries in the last 10 years, despite all the cuts, because we've moved support services into the libraries, and those people do help with online stuff and promote it and do courses to help people to make that switch. Doesn't mean everyone wants to make that switch. There are difficult decisions to be made in terms of what we can afford to provide to our customers in terms of choice going forwards necessarily.
May I just also pick up on that, because my background is public sector. I've actually got a local authority background before I became a commercial person. So from my perspective, it was very much around seeing the user or the taxpayer as a holistic person. So traditionally, public sector and certainly local authorities have done it on a service by service basis, and this is the service you will get rather than this is what the service that you want as a customer. So what you're able to do with the My Account service is look at that from a holistic point of view. So one of the Southwark's killer applications is obviously housing and the rent account and the repairs. I think there's 13,000 people, is it per month that are coming onto that. So that's quite clearly a demand for people to interact with the council in that way. Now, not every council is as big as Southwark, not every council has all the systems and the services that Southwark Council do. But what it enables you to do is deliver services that are relevant to that consumer and that customer, rather than this is what you get, this is what you can have. So, and a good example of that is when you register for council tax, you can also be told that you've got to register to vote as well, and encourage the uplift in those. From a marketing perspective, you can cross-sell and upsell council services to generate a revenue, but also you can market to those people, be that events, be that consultations, be that health initiatives. It gives the authority a platform to be able to see the customer as a whole, and then the more people you have, the more clever and smarter you can be about how you interact with that customer. So there are benefits now that Southwark are enjoying, which they didn't envisage going down the original My Southwark account. And being honest, the My Southwark account was about providing a better, more convenient service to customers, but it was also about saving money in the medium term. So they are the key objectives, but there are now other wins and other goals that are being achieved as a result of laying those foundations in place. And I think the biggest driver of that is the fact that the NHS Southwark Clinical Commissioning Group actually made contact directly with the local authority here to say, look, we've seen what you're doing with My Southwark, we're interested in doing something similar, can we use your system, can we use your product? So that's the kind of thing, again, from a public sector point of view, it's not just looking at a local authority perspective, there are other elements that can be moved forward on there. So schools, education, we talked about parking, talked about health, it's looking at that holistic journey. And I think when we talk about GDPR and personal data later, this thing around the person and their data footprint is going to become more important for local authorities. So if you've got that data in silos within the organisation, it's going to be an issue for you in terms of how you manage that. Anything else to add to that, Dave?
No, only that, I guess, let's say, the services we provide are generally statutory. We have to provide them to our customers. We know how many people use those services. We know what channels they go through. We know the processes that are involved in it. So, while when we're engaging about making a service online, we want to talk to our customers to make sure that it works, the solution we give them. But in terms of knowing what those services are and which are the key ones, which are the high demand ones, which are the expensive ones to administer from a local authority perspective, which ones are high priority in terms of they can't go wrong. We kind of know that data because it's what we do. It's not, I guess, like in a more commercial environment, it's which product line is selling, how do we know what they want? It's more, this is the stuff we've got to do, how do we do it in the best way that's most efficient?
It's an interesting question. Certainly, I think local authorities are grappling with that. but it's about having that platform and that foundation for us. Okay. Have we got any other further questions? I'm conscious of time. I'm conscious that the people from Southwark will be here, Dave and support. Sorry, I don't know your name, but will be here as well. As will be the Web Labs team. So there's an opportunity for one-to-one discussions and also follow-up discussions and follow-up meetings. So this isn't the end of Southwark being here. That we'll be here and an opportunity to speak. But I think now there's going to be a presentation now about some more of the technical aspects of MySouthwark and also the GDPR elements. So I think we're going to move on to that now. Okay. So thank you very much, Dave. I think we give it a round.